First, I want to start by offering my condolences to Ms. Malinowski, who I believe was here earlier. St. Louis and I are here today seeking accountability for the gun violence epidemic in our country and for all instances of potential law enforcement misconduct. Director Dettelbach, thank you for being here today. Let me say that I support several of the ATF's recent efforts, including the Ghost Guns rule, the stabilizing brace rule, and the efforts to stop gun trafficking. But as gun violence continues to shatter families and communities, thanks in part to weak gun laws in Republican-controlled states like mine in Missouri, equitable and effective enforcement of our existing laws, it must be a top priority. There is a difference between the way the law is written and the way it is enforced, as communities like St. Louis know all too well. So taking on the gun violence epidemic requires asking hard questions about enforcement. That's why the last time you were before this committee, I asked you about the Good Old Boys Roundup. In the 1980s and 1990s, ATF agents organized shameful whites-only events, which former ATF Director John McGaugh characterized as being racist in nature, anti-Black, and having discrimination almost every year. It may seem like old history, but there are legitimate and recent concerns about racial bias in the agency's enforcement operations, specifically in its use of sting operations. For example, a USA Today investigation from 2014 found that 91% of people arrested in ATF sting operations were Black or Latino. When you were U.S. Attorney, your office prosecuted these kinds of cases. Are you aware of these concerns regarding sting operations? And if any, what steps have you taken to address?
At ATF, we are very clear that we don't look at any of those kinds of factors, and it is absolutely a necessity, Congresswoman, that law enforcement not look at these kind of factors. And I would say there were comments that were made earlier that I thought somebody was perhaps implying that because somebody's wealthy or lives in a nice neighborhood, that they should be treated differently than other people. And I know there are lots of people who are in communities where they economically struggle, who are law-abiding citizens. We don't assume that because of where you live or how much you make, that you're any more or less likely to be a law-abiding citizen. That is a core value at ATF, and it's very important for you to ask that question and very important for me to answer it.
Thank you. And I will say that sometimes looking at it, we get to what you just said, though, looking at it and seeing that we do understand that folks in marginalized communities are often over-criminalized, or criminalized, period, is an issue that we must also address and fight to. I think you kind of started to allude to that. And so thank you. These questions are essential because in order for the ATF to be effective today, it needs to fix the problems of yesterday, including its troubled history of racist behavior and enforcement. But my concern about enforcement does not extend only to questions of racism. There needs to be accountability for all instances of potential misconduct by ATF agents. And that's why I do support my Republican colleagues' efforts to get more information from federal and local law enforcement about the death of Brian Malinowski. I know there is evidence that Mr. Malinowski fired first on the agents, but the circumstances warrant more information about what happened that day. But I say this because my solidarity, I want to be clear, my solidarity and my pursuit for accountability, my pursuit of accountability are not conditional. But I will say that I have been surprised to hear my Republican colleagues expressing concern about law enforcement shooting, lack of body camera footage, and no-knock warrants. I'm surprised because I and many of my Democratic colleagues have pushed for law enforcement accountability for years, and Republicans have mocked us and fought against us at every step. I'm surprised because 2023 set another record for law enforcement killings in this country. Police have killed an average of 3 people per day. Police disproportionately kill Black people, and there have only been 9 days this year where police didn't kill someone. Yet Republicans have refused to hold hearings about any of those deaths. And my question is, where have you been? Where have you been? Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, we've been protesting for 10 years. We have been protesting, we've been shot with rubber bullets, we've had dogs unleashed, we have been hit with tear gas and rubber bullets. George Floyd, we were out there for 3 months. Mike Brown, we were out there for 400 days. Where were you? Why didn't you care then? Because they're Black? I don't understand. All of a sudden, now we want to talk. But see, the thing is this. When we took a knee, folks were mad and criticized us. When we were nonviolent, people still criticized us. But now all of a sudden it's because All of a sudden now the difference is it color? But I say this, my solidarity is not conditional. So I ask them for the record that their solidarity is not conditional, that they are willing to support oversight and accountability for all deaths by law enforcement officers, regardless of race, ethnicity, faith, location, or anything else, that they will vote for real policy solutions that prevent police brutality and fund programs that keep our communities safe, including gun violence. And yes, I went over because someone else went over too. I just want to hear that come from my Republican colleagues.
The time of the gentlelady.
We care about police brutality that affects every person.
I thank you. The time.